I knew I'd do that. All the keywords all messed up. All right, let me try it again. Lamees is the co-founder and CEO of RISER.
I knew that I wanted to build a business. I just didn't know what business. It's by 2030, 65% will be millennials and Gen Z in the workforce. Creator economy is set to reach 2.7 trillion. We're going to capitalize on that market, unlock portfolio careers, have multiple streams of revenue through the RISER app. I've got to where I am today because of my network. It was never really a CV or a cover letter that got me my next opportunity. There is something quite magical about that feeling. I was on the bus and straight on Skyscanner.
Living for the plot.
Literally within 48 hours, I was in the US and the dark side of the industry. Truly believe that I was never ever going to be a founder again.
Let's not forget who was in the wrong in this situation.
That was the true vision. And I took that to every VC across London, got laughed out of every room. I was 19 and a female, and that is tough. Knowing that I'm already on the back foot here, how can I give myself an advantage? We have seen a ton of progress. How can we actually use that progress to drive more momentum for more women to understand what it takes to fundraise? You're in rooms that are difficult, but smash the doors down and get your seat at the table. And if they don't give you one, make your own.
Lamees is the co-founder and CEO of RISER, a video-led, AI-enabled career matchmaking app that puts the manager at the forefront. So think of it like Bumble, but for your next boss. She's also a fellow podcaster and host of the In Her Shoes podcast, which is on a mission to change the sad statistic that only 9% of women take up C-suite positions. The show is listened to in 64 countries and she is on a roll. So Lamees, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. What an intro.
I love it when my guests react like that, but it's all true. It's all completely true. So well done you. All right, let's go with the expanded pitch, elevator pitch of RISER and the genesis of the idea. How did it all come about?
Oh God, we're jumping straight in.
Let's jump straight in.
Love it. So RISER, as you said, is the world's first video-led career matchmaking app. And really our mission is to connect talent and hirers to really the person behind the opportunity. You know, the portfolio career space and the creator economy is set to reach 2.7 trillion by 2030. And actually we're going to capitalize on that market by really helping people unlock portfolio careers and have multiple streams of revenue through the RISER app. So we launched in May of this year and it has grown, 150% month over month.
Wow.
And it's been an incredible journey.
What was the light bulb moment for you? What made you think of this idea in the first place?
It's a really interesting question because I didn't ever think or believe that I would be a founder again.
We'll talk about that.
We'll talk about
Serial
that,
entrepreneur.
Yeah. But actually, in August of 2023, I started the In Her Shoes podcast, as you mentioned. And that podcast was really born from my frustration being in the tech industry for the last 15 years, being, predominantly the only woman in most rooms, and not to be a victim, because I absolutely wasn't, fought my way through it. But the point was that I wanted to create an alliance of strong women who'd earned a seat at the table and share their stories. And when I was younger, Karren Brady was my North Star. She was, she had the book, she was, Alan Sugar's right-hand woman, but she was a powerhouse. And I was like, I'm going to be like her.
Love that.
But there are so many Karren Bradys, right? There are so many incredible women who deserve to have their stories shared, not just because they're on the front of Forbes. And so interviewing all of these women, they all said pretty much verbatim the same thing. I've got to where I am today because of my network. I've got to where I am today because of the authentic relationships that I've created. It was never really a CV or a cover letter that got me my next opportunity. And the more I kept hearing it, I was like, God, there's something with that. But like common sense, right? It really, people buy from people. But then I would go out to promote the podcast and I was speaking to young people 1 to 3 years into their career. And they were saying, I don't know what my trajectory looks like. There's no real career path for me. I'm hitting quick apply on LinkedIn and I'm not hearing anything back. And I was like, there's a huge gap here in how to use a network to unlock kind of connection and career success. So I got thinking, this was last Christmas. Actually, I had COVID and I was stuck in a hotel room and it was the aha moment. I basically drew it all out, wireframed out, and luckily I've been in the AI space for the last nearly half a decade and really understanding how you can use data as a baseline paired with beautiful UX and UI experiences to serve your customer. That was what I was trying to build. And so the genesis really was speaking to people and hearing their stories.
I love that. Two things I want to underscore with that. One is the importance of observing, listening first and foremost, because I think that's such a classic entrepreneurial mistake, to come up with an idea and impose your product or your solution into the market without actually having even tested or, again, even just listened. So kudos to you for like taking that step back, treating almost the podcast like a research project, right? And just hearing all these stories. And then the second thing, with you having COVID over Christmas, you just made me think this is actually how Queen Girl Boss started. Sophia Amoroso with Nasty Girls. She was ill, I think she was injured, and like you, obviously we're these like go-getters and firecrackers, but similarly, again, you were both forced to like be bedridden. You were forced to like sit down, stay at home, and you were forced to stay still and sit with those thoughts for long enough for
it to happen,
to encourage that light bulb moment to come. Amazing. So you're currently fundraising, although when this episode comes out, it may have closed, hopefully. What's that been like? What have been the most surprising elements of fundraising, and how are you balancing that with running the business alongside it? I know you've got a co-founder, but obviously it's still super tough.
I think there's two things. I think the topic of fundraising, there's no point talking about the stats. We all know them. They're everywhere. But I think when we come at it from a positive perspective, that we have seen a ton of progress. I was interviewed by Albright last week, the article came out last week. And actually the conversation with Albright was, what is the progress that we've made from 2014 to where we are today? And how can we actually use that progress to drive more momentum for more women to understand what it takes to fundraise? And I think when you're in these early stages of building a business, like you will know this as well, right? It's one of those things where you really do have to compartmentalize the growth of the business versus the fundraise, because they are very much two separate things. And I feel very lucky that I have Suze, my co-founder, where we're able to kind of segment some of this now, because when it first launched, it was just me, and that was a lot. And it was really trying to bring it to market, get product market fit. And now that we have that, now that we have users who are talking about it, they've seen success, time to hire rates, so, averaging 2 weeks, which is wild.
That's amazing.
We can now split those responsibilities and still focus on new business and still focus on acquiring new users, but equally go out to kind of build those relationships and start driving the fundraise round.
Right. And so how do you split the responsibilities between you and Suze?
So from an operational standpoint, I'm tech, she's marketing. And then from a fundraise standpoint, it's me speaking to the investors while Suze is kind of continuing to grow the business and making sure that we're onboarding users in the right way, that we're speaking to our customers in the way that we should be. But as you know, kind of in these startup scrappy days, you're very much just doing everything all at once.
Yeah, it is so hard. So you mentioned you started out by yourself. How long was it until you brought Suze on board? And what advice could you give to anyone who is on their own and maybe thinking, oh my God, if I did have a co-founder here in the trenches with me, it would make things so much easier? Like, how did you find her? We met very serendipitously. I slid into her DMs. So we met through the podcast, and that it was another reason for why podcasting is just such a powerful way to connect with people. The podcast, I think there was an episode out, and actually Suze's friend had sent her the podcast, said, have you listened to this? Oh, nice.
She followed the account on Instagram, and I saw her. And I was kind of just snooping through her profile, and I thought, God, she looks great. I would love to have a conversation. I'm always super interested in speaking to interesting people. And we had our first conversation, and honestly, when you know.
Just clicked.
Yeah.
Love that. I love that so much. And on that note, there are so many interesting, co-founder psychometric tests, and especially with these accelerators, they do a lot of exercises to see if you're the right fit. But I love what you just said there with actually I've also noticed so many successful co-founder pairings. It's just like any relationship. It's just kind of all that stuff is great and it's helpful. There's definitely a place for it, but there's also a place for vibes.
100%. I
just totally
we get
on.
With you. And also, I think that trust is incredibly important, and it's I feel like it's overlooked. But just like you said, it's relationships. They take work, and they take building trust. Trust doesn't just happen. It's earned. It's not expected. And so it's something where it's only in our dark times, if we've had a bit of a failure or something has happened, and we're there for each other and we show up for each other, that is when true relationships are built. built, and those are the things that, you know, we're building. And it's so exciting to kind of see those things happening. And trust me, like, she's seen me cry so many times, and likewise, because it's not all roses and rainbows. It isn't.
Yeah, that's very true, actually. It's easy to just get on and be fine when everything is fine, isn't it? So how have you navigated those like darker periods with each other?
I think that coming from a place of, we know when we started this, it was, we both knew what we wanted the outcome to be. And as long as we know that we're on this journey together and we've got each other's back, and it's knowing that you can pick up the call before things get too out of hand, you know, even in your own mind, making sure that we can have really open and honest conversations with each other, which I feel like is, again, an overrated thing in the corporate world or in the workforce. You have this layer of like facade. You don't actually say what's going on, or you don't actually say what the thing is. You skirt and dance around it.
It's kind of a British thing as well, isn't it?
Yeah, like I think if we were just a bit more direct about the thing, we would get through it.
Yeah. Do you have siblings, by the way?
I do.
Because I feel like sibling is good training. Right?
Yeah.
It's making me think of like my little sister and like those long-term enduring relationships. You know, family. You're forced to like go through some stuff, and then you know,
grow through what you go through.
I say that all the time. We are so the same person. I love that. All right, so just to recap, right, so you found your co-founder fairly serendipitously through the podcast. Also, I think kudos to you as well for like, again, being proactive, reaching out directly. You just kind of hit it off, vibes were there, and you kind of gone through those ups and downs together that's helped kind of build that relationship. You've got that trust. Just back on the fundraising piece, because I know that that's a big thing at the moment, and I'm sure founders would be interested to hear biggest surprises that you've encountered along the way.
The biggest surprises are that I think that, you know, with VCs or with angels, that I wouldn't say so much of a surprise, but it's more probably more just an observation that it really is all about relationships more than anything. I feel like you really have to lean into wanting to build a relationship and authentically with somebody, because especially at this early stage, when you're a Series A, it's different. It's more science. Right now, it's art, and they have to buy into you. And so if you have to know that to buy into you, there has to be some time behind that, and there's a relationship to be built. So if you're looking to fundraise, don't just expect to send a cold email and then get a yes, and then, you know, there's a signed check and term sheet the next week. It doesn't work like that. You really have to build that relationship over a period of time. And
you saying time, keyword actually, is also siphoning out the time wasters. Yeah. Because relationship building, it does take time, but you can go around in circles and feel like you're chasing your tail. Are there any like red flags that you look out for, like, or green flags where you know that it is worth kind of pursuing certain relationships?
Yeah, I think that, you know, especially with angel investors at an early stage, I think you're really looking for key partners and somebody that buys into you. But equally, if somebody's saying to you at this early stage, I want, you know, five steps of due diligence for your pre-seed round, it's a red flag for me. Yeah, it is. You know, you're buying into me, you're buying into the concept, and at a Series A, maybe even a seed, quite frankly, with institutional funds, it would be different. But with an angel at this early stage, it's just it would be a red flag for me.
Yeah, good. And I love that you shared just that really like specific practical tip. Like, we can talk about all these generalized lessons, but I love giving my listeners like specific, like, if you're having a conversation with an angel investor and they are putting you through the ringer and going around, it's just like any it's like, are we hiding, are we masking? You know, no, I don't think anyone likes confrontation. We were saying before about like the British communication
stiff upper
stuff.
lip.
Do you know what I mean? Where it's like, are we just drawing this out? Like, who's gonna call this out for what it is?
Yeah.
do you really need? Here's everything you need. If that's not enough for you, it's not enough for you. Right. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you. Next.
And pass.
All right. Thank you so much for sharing that. I feel like that's really interesting. Linked to the fundraise, I'm also really curious to hear what you're going to do with the money. And especially with my background, like Sue's as well, your co-founder, very much marketing, customer acquisition. You've got some really great ideas about out of the box ways that you're going to build your customer base and not fall into that performance marketing trap, which I love to hear. So tell us about that.
I think that from a how we will deploy the funds, a lot of what we're going to be doing over the next 18 months is product growth. Where it is now, which is, RISER 2.0, we have a full 18-month roadmap, which has been fueled already by user feedback. And one thing that I want to get to is that we're delivering a best-in-class product for our users. We're truly solving a problem. This isn't, vanity metrics. This is really about making sure that our users can get onto the platform, find an opportunity, connect, and actually land it in the shortest period of time. And so how we get more users onto the platform, just as you said, kind of, you have these performance marketing, and we'd spoken about this before. I think if you've got the budget to spend on it, and you're a large organization, you've got the multi-six figures to blow on a contract, fine. But I think at this early stage, we need to be hacking the system. And so we'll be doing a number of different programs start in 2025 that will actually help us acquire both sides of the marketplace, from a talent side, which from an entry point to market, we're focusing on Gen Z and millennials because they are a mobile first, video first generation. Them seeing RISER was like a duck to water. There was no hardship whatsoever. There was no question about it being
like frictionless.
Absolutely.
Just made sense. Love that.
And then on the flip side of the marketplace with hirers, we're really targeting SMEs, and it really excites me to target SMEs because I think that, number one, they're the companies of tomorrow, and they deserve to have a place where they can showcase how exciting an opportunity is to work for a small startup. And currently on the job boards that are out there, whether it is, the Indeed or the Otters or wherever it is, you will find that budget is placed in those areas because they have it. And so how can we amplify the voices of smaller companies that are the future of tomorrow?
Nice. I mean, you talk about SMEs and startups. Can you also share a bit of a bigger brand that we would have heard of that you're collaborating with?
Yes. So excitingly, we are going to be collaborating with Canva, which I can't believe I'm actually saying out there. It feels really surreal, and they're the Disney of the tech world. And if I'd had, which I absolutely did have, a vision board of what I would want kind of RISER to look like, collaborating with Canva was absolutely on it.
How come? Canva?
Their mission is to empower anyone to design. When I thought about that mission, I was like, it's authentic, it's real. It cuts through the noise. They actually mean what they say. They're not saying it just for words or for marketing. They truly want to help people design. And I can say that as a customer of Canva, they have helped me create all the assets for my podcast. They have helped me build the life that I want through using their platform. Yeah. And I thought, what an incredible way to be able to integrate Canva and the platform that they have with RISER. And so currently there is a technical integration with Canva and RISER because I want people to be able not only to show their video of their elevator pitch, but also to power their Canva portfolio. So all of the work that they've done in the past, why not show it? And so now you can actually power that portfolio on your RISER profile. And when you think about the two missions that we have, there's the mission to empower anyone to design, and RISER to really empower anyone to unlock opportunities through human connection. If you connect them both, it's really Canva and RISER enabling anyone to design the life that they want. Yeah. And that's really what we're going to be doing, launching on the 6th of Feb. So we're going to be doing that at their Shoreditch HQ. I'll give the links for anybody that wants to join, because it will be open and ticketed. But yeah, it's going to be really exciting.
Exciting. Congratulations.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
How poetic as well, Canva founded by a woman.
I know.
Right? And experienced so much adversity herself, and now obviously unicorn status, rumoured to IPO in the next year or two as well. So just all of those linkages really tie up well. I just want to stick with the user acquisition piece for a sec. So obviously this is kind of a marketplace model, because you have got the talent on one side, you've got the hirers on the other. What's your kind of decision-making process around which to prioritize? And can you give us some, a little tidbit of some of those acquisition out-the-box strategies that you're thinking of doing?
So, opportunities, hirers will go wherever the talent is. And so, yes, it's chicken and egg, but we need to make sure that we've got the talent in order to be able to provide fulfill the demand that comes in. And so for us, it's making sure that we've got the best of breed talent on the platform to fulfill the roles that come on through the likes of you know, Why Hangry have posted their opportunities on there. Both the co-founders, incredible people.
Nice.
And to be able to see that they're also forward thinking and want to connect with their tribe, because, you know, they are a startup and they're a fast growing startup, and they want to make sure that they're bringing in the right people. And so, you know, we'll be doing things like showing up at universities, making sure that we can really bring people along the journey with us as well. They're the future of the workforce. I think it's by 2030, 65% will be millennials and Gen Z in the workforce. And so we need to be setting them up for success as they're thinking about bridging from education into the working world. I mean, university itself is a whole different topic for me. Whether I would encourage my kids to go if and when I have them, will be a whole different topic.
Same. All right. We need to maybe do a separate one on that. Amazing. Love that. All right. So we touched on your serial entrepreneurial journey. What was your first business? What happened there? And specifically, I would love for you to tell the crazy story about how you got on a plane to see an investor.
You know, it sounds like when you say it like that, you're probably thinking, like, is she batshit crazy? But at 19, I was studying for a law degree, and my parents had encouraged me to study law. Really was not for me. It was like square peg, round hole, and I dropped out after a year. I knew that I wanted to build a business. I just didn't know what business. And I think that comes back to, I'm a builder. Like, it's in my DNA. It's not necessarily wanting to, I want to see the end result, but I don't want to stand in the ivory tower and just dictate from up there. I want to be in the trenches and I want to build. And so back then, this was 2007. Do you remember Blogger? It was like the blogging website. Anyone could create a blog.
Nostalgic.
Yeah. So I started a blog. It was all about style. And I would just pop on there, you know, capsule wardrobe ideas, how to create a capsule wardrobe with 40 pieces and how you could limit a budget for that. And I started to get inbounds, like people would respond and say, do you do this as a service? And I was like, that's really interesting. I don't, but I absolutely can. And so at university, I started then taking people out on half days, full days for personal shopping. And quite quickly, I realized this is quite lucrative, but I'm only one person. And surely there are many people who feel this way, because the stories I was hearing were, I've just had a breakup, I've gone through a life experience and I'm feeling awful, I've lost my confidence and I'm trying to reinvent myself. And I was like, this is a lot deeper than just trying to go and find an outfit. And so what I wanted to do was create a platform that allowed people to come to it, to share where they were in their life and enable them to curate a wardrobe or an outfit that helped them identify, you know, with who they were. And so again, I started thinking about what this app could be. And I clearly have a thing for apps, and the app was called My Mannequin. And back then, again, 2007, this was way before AI was kind of coming into play. But to make this successful, because my competitors at the time were the likes of Thread, eTail, to make this work, we needed huge amounts of data, because if we know anything about AI, they are very, very large data models that learn, you know, as you go. It's a compound effect. And so what I knew that I had to do was start somewhere. So we essentially started with a bit of like a question and answer. Tell me a bit about the things that you like, your lifestyle, the brands that you like, your budget, and it would aggregate an outfit for you.
And sounds so ahead of its time.
Do you know what?
So futuristic.
But I just think that the difficulty is that because it was futuristic, actually environmentally we weren't quite ready for that change. And so the vision, although that app was what it was, I wanted it to be a visual augmented reality application so that you could try these clothes on in your own home. That was the true vision. And I took that to every VC across London, got laughed out of every room. I was 19 and a female, and that is tough. And so I just thought, right, how can I get seen? How can I stand out from the crowd, knowing that I'm already on the back foot here? How can I give myself an advantage? And so I ended up watching, these were like early podcast days. They used to do live streams of these things. It was called This Week in Startups and This Week in Venture Capital. And I used to watch these people, VCs, who would talk about, you know, how to be a great entrepreneur, how to be a great founder. And they would live stream. It was 2 a.m. London time. I think it was probably 8 p.m. Eastern time over there. And I would comment in the chat and start, you know, asking questions. And because my name is quite unique, they would say, oh, I really don't want to butcher your name, but someone from the UK has just joined, Lamees. And I was like, oh, they've just said my name. That's great. And also, thank God my name is unique, because now you'll remember it. And I thought, right, now that they've said my name, within that week, I sat down, got a camcorder out, filmed my pitch. I had done so much research on these specific individuals. So I'd known that they lived in London for 10 years, sold their first 2 companies to Salesforce, and then had moved back to the US. The favorite things that they enjoyed while living in London were the tube, bizarre thing to love about living in London, but also drinking Guinness, that one I could get on board with. And so I bought a tube map mug and the little Oyster card holder, and I put my pitch on a USB, put it inside the Oyster card holder, and shipped it out, recorded delivery. A week later, it wasn't even a week, it must have been about 4 days, and I got the confirmation saying that it had arrived. And you know when you see the email and you're like, it's in their hand, great, I'm gonna get the email, they're gonna love it, and they're gonna invite me over to America.
Sit back and wait for the invite to come in. Yeah,
that did not happen. That was my absolute naivety. But what did happen was a couple of days later, I got a Google alert on my phone for this person's blog. They'd uploaded a new post, and the blog post said, founders, if you're looking for funds, you need to shake hands and kiss babies. And I was like, okay. I carried on reading, and the article basically just said, you know, if you're really looking for funds and it's across the water, you need to jump on a plane and get out here. I was like, was that targeted at me? At which point I'm on a bus heading to my part-time job, and instantly...
Was this House of Fraser, by the way?
This was just before that, actually.
I wanted to ask you about that as well. Wait, what was that job? Was it like retail?
It was retail, part-time.
Love that.
Yeah.
We've got so much in common.
Honestly, my fiance and I have a competition for how many jobs and companies I've worked for in
same.
my...
We could talk about this too. Yeah.
We could have a competition.
Yeah, anyway. So you're on the bus, sorry. Yeah.
So I was on the bus and straight on Skyscanner. I was looking at flights and I booked the flight, and literally within 48 hours I was in the US. I'd booked the hotel next to his office. I was standing outside 5 a.m. every day. Could probably have got arrested and looked very bizarre. This young female standing outside this, you know, office every day at 5 in the morning. I just wanted to get the glimpse. I knew I could do the elevator pitch. That's all I needed. 3 days I was there for 6 days. 3 days into the trip, I hadn't heard anything. And I was starting to get quite deflated, and I thought, God, have I made a massive mistake here? You've just flown here on a whim. And I was sitting at the bar, and in America, everybody's so much more friendly than they are here in the UK. And everybody was just chatting to one another. The bar staff came over, everybody's making drinks, and they just said, why are you here? Obviously, everybody in America has a story. This was LA specifically. I had a Stella McCartney model to my left and an aspiring actor to my right. And I was like, I've got like a tech startup, and like it wasn't cool back then. It just really wasn't cool. So I felt really out of my depth. And so I told them the story, and they were like, oh my God, so he hasn't even responded to you. He knows you're here. He's not even dropped you an email to say like, you know, really great you're here, but I don't have meeting space or whatever. And I said no. They carried on making the drink. I think it was a margarita or whatever they were making. And they just said, look, come with us. And again, quite ominous. Your mum tells you to never follow somebody into the back kitchen of a hotel. But you know what? I was at a place where I was like, fuck it, let's just do it.
You've already flown halfway across the world for this guy. I mean, what's following some strangers into their back kitchen going to do?
And what we did was we baked him a cake in the shape of a Guinness pint glass, which was obviously his favourite drink to drink in London, and sent it to his office. And I woke up the next day and refreshed my laptop. It was just on my lap as I was sleeping. And the first email said, how can I say no to that? Breakfast Friday morning. And I was overjoyed. Wow. I was just like, okay, wow. Like, okay, you've got the meeting. Celebrate for a minute, but now get your head in the game. Get your pitch ready. Make sure that it's, you know...
one shot.
Exactly.
Mum spaghetti.
And, you know, it was amazing. You know, he was incredible. He liked the idea. He said, I totally see where you're going. I don't think we're environmentally ready for the AR, VR. And it's amazing because that's where we are today, if I look back.
Ahead of the curve.
And he just said, look, I really want something tangible, something I can play with. So go back, build it, and then let's have another conversation. And what kind of happened after that was a series of events which ultimately led me to truly believe that I was never ever going to be a founder again, because some relationships progress and they go to incredible places, but some relationships, some people show maybe the dark side of the industry. And as a 19-year-old, naive, and I'm okay to admit that now because in retrospect I had a lot to learn, I was really prepared to share and overshare everything. he had come back to London, asked me where we were. This was about 3 months later. We sat down and he said, look, there's a couple of reasons I wanted to meet you. I've just invested in a company. They're quite similar to my mannequin. They were run by two men. It was a fashion company. And he basically had asked me how my mannequin would make money. They were burning through cash. How would my mannequin be sticky and keep users, retain them in the app? And I just thought, firstly, you've just said you've invested in a company that's quite similar to my mannequin. You're never going to invest in me because it's a conflict of interest. But I went into fight or flight. And I just thought, if I can prove that I'm good enough, you'll invest in me. And so I just word vomited. And USPs, revenue strategies, how we were going to build revenue streams, what our moat was going to be. And as soon as I'd said it all, I was like, why the hell did you just do that? And he basically went on to say, look, the company's being run by two guys at the moment. But we need a female to come in and kind of help grow the company. It won't be yours, but you'll see something grow from the ground up. And you know what? Yeah, maybe my ego got in the way, and I said no.
Good.
I really believed in what my mannequin could have been, and he just said, look, I respect that. I'll be here as a mentor. But 4 weeks later, they came out with all the ideas, and it was heartbreaking. And I promised myself from that moment I would never do this to myself again. And that's why doing RISER now has shocked me. At 35, I cannot believe I've said goodbye to the lucrative salary. I've said goodbye to everything, and I've gone back in.
Oh my God, Lamees. Incredible story. I had goosebumps with all these like incredible moments, and my energy, I'm there with you. I'm so disappointed and deflated. And as much as all 19-year-olds are bloody naive, I was crazy naive as well, right? We're just lacking life experience. That's all it. Yeah. That's literally all it is. But the sad thing about that is, like, I'd ask you what you would do differently today, being older and wiser. But let's not forget who was in the wrong in this situation here, because as much as you feel guilty, or you felt like you shouldn't have, that was a lesson learned the hard way, you shouldn't have overshared, this guy is the one who acted completely wrong here. So again, you hadn't done anything wrong. That question, so if you were in that same situation now, would you take that roll of the dice and fly out halfway across the world? Would you put all that effort in to get their attention? And I guess, would you have just overall invested so much to get that like one big fish?
I think that when you're young and an opportunity presents itself, there is something quite magical about that feeling of, I'm going to conquer this and I'm going to do it. And if you have that fire in your belly, go with it. But what I would say is the things that I would do differently now would be sitting at that table, having a bagel, where he was asking me, how I would do things. You're asking somebody to give away their value, and I would now be careful about how I would respond to that, knowing that there was an ulterior motive laced into that conversation there. And you know what? Yeah, would my life have had a different trajectory if I'd taken that opportunity and gone and been a VP of product at the age of 19? Massively. But equally, I wouldn't be sitting here today, and I wouldn't have done the things that I've done.
Yeah, for me, I'm never one for dwelling on the past unless it is just that kind of a review, a debrief, what are the lessons learned from it, and then to move on, but not, it is a slippery slope to then start questioning, like, what if, or like, no, this, that, or the other. But kudos to you. I mean, living for the plot as well there. Like, it's an amazing story, if anything else. But yeah, I don't know. What's just really stuck with me as well is like, you do roll the dice, and I mean that in such a great way. Like, clearly you have got such a great head screwed on your shoulders. You're so smart. You've got that energy. You've got that drive. You've got the clarity of vision, the goals, all the rest of it. And with that risk tolerance that you have as an entrepreneur, you roll the dice in these different directions. And we know, like, realistically, some of them are going to pay off, some of them aren't. And when the ones that do pay off, I mean, the co-founder story, for example, is like that connection, the sliding into the DMs, and relating it back to this investor story is like, I would have probably done the same, because you do want to prove yourself, and you think, especially if you feel like you're on the back foot as a young woman, whether consciously or subconsciously, you think, oh, well, if I can demonstrate to them, I mean, who knows? Like, he could have still been impressed.
Absolutely.
And it could have still led to something else. So,
which, by the way, I feel like the lesson that I took from that was I showed up and met him at 19 with not much more than a deck and a static working product. And I knew when building RISER over 15 years later, that I was going to have to bootstrap this up until the point that we had product market fit, because I'm not here to deny that women have a tough time in the venture world, but equally I want to fight that from a different angle, and I want to do everything that I can to say, we know that, so how can I get past it? We had this conversation before. You're in rooms that are difficult, but smash the doors down and get your seat at the table, and if they don't give you one, make your own.
Love it. Preach. Love that so much. Linked to that with the lessons learned, the title of the show, Strategy and Tragedy, is because often the best lessons can come from the biggest mistakes. What is one particular tragedy that's taught you an unforgettable lesson?
Honestly, it's part of the reason I feel so strongly about why RISER needs to exist. My mum is not very well, and we're not guaranteed tomorrow. And with the time that we have left on this earth as humans, we have a responsibility and a duty to be a positive change and be a force for change for future generations. And so my mum's illness is an absolute tragedy. She is young. She should be healthy. She's in her 50s. And it's agonizing to watch. But watching her and seeing her teaches me that, and she's always taught me from a young age that the world is your oyster, that I have to do this for her, and I have to show her that she gave me life for a reason, and I'm going to do everything I possibly can with it.
Lamees, that is so touching. I love that. I guess the tragedy is to not fulfill the potential during our limited time on this planet.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry to hear that. I hope your mum gets better.
Thank you.
On that note, I feel like I don't really want to end it there. Let's end on a slightly more positive note. So I guess linking back to your purpose, using your limited time on this planet, what's the purpose that's driving you and exciting you at the moment?
Right now, in the next 5 years, there's going to be 1 billion people coming onto the internet. And what I'm really excited about is that opportunity is not as equally dispersed as talent is. And I cannot wait to be giving more incredible talent the opportunity to find the humans that will unlock their financial freedom, their careers through RISER.
Lamees, love that. Such a perfect entrepreneur, painting an exciting vision for the future. You have absolutely everything that it takes, which of course is not news. So I'm so excited to see your continued trajectory. Genuinely, you've just got every single ingredient that it takes. So I have absolutely no doubt that this is going to be a major success. So thank you so much for your time and the interview with me now.
Thank you for having me. This has been amazing.
And thank you so much for listening. Really hope that you enjoyed this interview. Please hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. It takes 2 seconds, costs nothing, and of course really helps the show. Hopefully see you next time.